Nintendo just changed everything, and I don't think that we're ever going back. Now, this is going to piss off a lot of people, but I want to have this discussion because I haven't seen anyone else talking about this from this angle. So hold your firepower, hold your anger until the end of the video, and let me know in the comments section. I'll read all of your comments because people are freaking out about paying $80 for a video game, right? Mario Kart World, $80. I get it. That price tag hits differently for a lot of people, but we've asked for it. We've been perverting the market for years, and now the chickens have come home to roost. I'll explain that in a minute, but first, for years, the golden number was $60 for a video game. That was the standard, the unspoken rule, $60. Then suddenly we're seeing $70 games, $80 games, Tears of the Kingdom, now Mario Kart World, even more in some cases. Just wait for GTA 6 to come out. $100? Maybe $120 for that game? We don't know yet. We're just speculating. And of course, people are losing it, losing their minds. Comment sections are blowing up. Reddit threads are raging. It's like we've crossed some sort of sacred line in the sand. People forget, though, by the way, that in the 1990s, when we had games were $79 a pop. I know, I worked at a video game store then. I worked at EB Games. How quickly we forget. We expect cheap electronics these days. We expect our electronics from China to be cheap, and we expect our video games to be cheap. We expect Steam sales for like $1.99 for a video game, or free, free to play games. But here's what nobody's really talking about. We've been underpaying for things like video games, electronics, computers, TVs, even food for decades. $60? That wasn't actually sustainable. It was artificially propped up by a broken system that was built on cheap overseas labor and suppressed production costs. Now I'm talking specifically for electronics, actual physical devices. The sticker shock that you're feeling right now, that's not greed. That's the reality finally catching up. Let me walk you through why paying $80 for a game like Mario Kart World might actually be a bargain in the long run. I know. Again, save your anger for later. But let's talk about this, okay? Let's talk about time. Because right now, as of this Monday, I'm recording this on a Monday, I'm 103 hours into Monster Hunter Wilds. I just unlocked a new hub world. I'm still discovering new gear, new monster variants, new quests. But by the time I platinum this game, it'll be well over 120 hours, maybe even longer than that. And that's me playing in short bursts. An hour here, maybe 2 hours there, a little bit more on the weekend, spread out over weeks. Like I'm getting my money's worth out of this game. I'm not rushing to play the next thing immediately. Like I used to do back in the 80s. Spend all summer trying to beat Metroid. Spend all summer trying to beat Kid Icarus. Spend the entire fall trying to beat Zelda. Countless hours of entertainment. So I paid maybe $60 for this game, maybe $70, I forget. When this new Monster Hunter Wilds just came out, I think maybe it was 60. I don't remember off the top of my head. But journalist Gene Park was on the Spawn Wave live show over the weekend, and he said something that I think needed to be said. Now, he's spoken to countless development houses, he says, who all said the same thing to him. They all want to charge more for their games. He said no one will go on the record and say that, but they all say it privately. They all want to charge more for their games.
Nobody will ever get this on the record. The AAA video game industry has been waiting for this. Every AAA publisher wants to charge more than $70. They pretty much look to Nintendo and Rockstar, the two biggest publishers in the world, the two biggest brands that have the biggest, public perception, to basically tank that public damage, because publishers and studios do feel like the games are still too cheap.
They'd love to charge at least $100 for a big game. Now compare that to taking my family to the movies. So I just ran the numbers on this, jumped on AMC's website to book some movie tickets, okay? The tickets alone for family of 5 of us, my wife and my 3 kids, $68. That's not counting the popcorn, the candy, maybe some drinks, all of which my kids will definitely ask for. So all in, it's easily $90 to $100 for a 2-hour experience. So now let's do the math on that. Movies, okay? $90 for 2 hours. That's $45 per hour. Monster Hunter Wilds, $70 for 110 hours. That's 64 cents per hour. And that might actually be too high because I think it might have actually been $60 that I paid for that, maybe like $59 for that game. I might be wrong. But anyway, 64 cents per hour of entertainment. And here's the kicker. When the credits roll on that movie, it's done. No bonus levels, no alternate endings, no community around it. We're not modding it. We're not rewatching it every weekend with friends. If you want to do that, you're going to have to buy the movie on iTunes or, something else. Maybe buy a Blu-ray disc for $30. But with a game, the value keeps growing. You keep playing. Online with friends, you get new hunts, new builds, living content. Like the other day I was on a trip over the weekend and I came back and I logged in. There was an entirely new Monster Quest that had just been uploaded. It's part of a little DLC. New hunts, new builds, living content. So why do we accept $90 for a 2-hour movie, but act like $80 for hundreds of hours is a crime? Because we've been trained that way. That's why. We've been trained to see games as a cheap hobby commodity, but that's an illusion. It's a market perversion. But now that's starting to crack. Let's take Mario Kart World, for instance. Nintendo announces it'll cost $80. But even if we go back before that, let's talk Tears of the Kingdom. $70. Phenomenal game. To me, one of the greatest games I've ever played. Maybe my favorite game of all time. Maybe. I think so. But it's up there. So the internet exploded with this Mario Kart World announcement. They're fine with the $450 Nintendo Switch price. They kind of get that because they know that, a lot of people pay $1,200 for an iPhone. So a Nintendo Switch that's going to last like 8 years, they're going to use. Okay, they're mostly okay with that. I think they would have loved for it to be $399, but $449, $450, fine. Mostly fine with that. But $80 for a piece of software that took years to make? They're pissed off big time. But come on, be honest. How many of you sunk hundreds, maybe thousands of hours into Mario Kart 8? For more than 8 years, that game has been the gift that keeps on giving. You've played it with your kids. You've played it with your friends, online, on the couch. It's still a staple of game night 8 years later. Let's assume you put 300 hours into Mario Kart World over the next few years, which is honestly conservative. $80 divided by 300 hours? That's 26 cents an hour. That's a quarter. Less than a gumball from a vending machine, right? And for that, you're not just racing, you're bonding, you're laughing, having fun with your kids, making memories. I mean, anytime I play Mario Kart with my kids, it's a blast. We laugh the whole time. What's that worth to you? I don't know. It's different for different people, I guess. But here's the bigger truth. We've been freaking out about higher game prices because we've gotten used to cheap everything, cheap TVs, cheap phones, cheap consoles. So we think we're getting a deal. But those prices, they're not real. They're the result of a global economy built on outsourced labor and suppressed costs. So for decades, America sent its manufacturing overseas. The major event, of course, happened during the Bill Clinton years, right? And his signing of the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. That was a major catalyst. It opened up the floodgates for U.S. companies to get out of here, move operations to Mexico where labor was cheaper, regulations were looser. Americans lost 5 million manufacturing jobs. Over 90,000 factories have closed. Jobs disappeared. And in exchange, we got flat screen TVs for $200, smartphones for $699. So Americans were kind of okay with this. Oh, you mean John lost his job? But hey, I got this cheap Nokia flip phone? Or, hey, my Dell computer is only $499. Sure, it'll break in a year, but that's okay. It's a commodity. It's cheap now. So I'll just buy another crappy Dell computer next year. Oh, I need to call Dell's customer service because of an issue? Sure, now that call center is located in India. I'm telling you, I speak from experience. I had so many damn problems with my Dell computers when I was just starting out in my career. Man, those things were cheap, right? Like $499. But they would always break like a year later. Stop working. And if you wanted customer service, now you're calling India, getting no help at all. But that's the cheapness. That cheapness came at a price. So we hollowed out our entire middle class. We lost the ability to make things ourselves. We built an entire economy built on the illusion of affordability. We closed businesses. We outsourced all of our precious minerals mining to other countries. Heck, even our uranium enrichment. We don't have that in the United States anymore. Bill Clinton gave that to Russia. We have nothing. So now the bill is finally coming due. And then you enter tariffs. Now, under the Trump administration, we're seeing a massive shift, a massive course correction. Tariffs on imports from countries like China are forcing us to reckon with the true cost of what we buy. Critics are screaming, it's making things more expensive. Well, it depends. We haven't seen that yet, but that's kind of the point, right? It's about leveling the playing field, making it possible for American factories to compete again. This American business owner explains it perfectly. Watch.
So do you want to know the part that they're not telling you about tariffs? Here's the reality that nobody's talking about. Nobody. This lighter costs $25 in America to buy an American-made product, okay? China makes one, sells it for $20 here in America. Out of that $20, $5 goes to whoever in America sells it. $15 of it goes back to China. You buy the $25 one in America, all $25 stays in America. So now we want to say, let's balance this out, and we're going to put a 50% tariff on Chinese goods. Now this lighter costs $30 to sell in the United States. Now you have the US made one at $25. It is cheaper. It's more expensive in the big picture, I get it. But it's now cheaper, so people are going to buy the American made one. 100% of the $25 that you spend stays in America, stays here. The demand increases for that business has to hire employees. When many businesses hire employees, that creates a supply shortage of employees, which make wages go up. Is this more expensive for the consumer in the short term? Yes, but you're getting a better product. You're getting a better product for your money, and the money is staying local. Okay, you're not funding these other countries and their businesses. That is the purpose behind all of this. Will we have a recession? Yes. Will prices go up in the short term? Yes. But the lagging effect is all of that money now stays here with us. It's not leaving the country, which gives us more money in the United States to go around for everybody. Of course, every nation in the world is going to say, we're being bad neighbors and bad business partners. Well, of course, we've made them rich. And now we as a people are suffering. We want our money back. Why is that so hard? It's not ideal, but it works and it makes sense. And I'm not a pro-Trumper at all, but I believe in it. I'm a business owner. I know how it works. Have a great day.
He's right. You want quality, you want security, you want independence. It doesn't come cheap. It never has. We're no longer hiding the cost behind exploited labor and unfair trade deals. We're finally starting to pay for what things are actually worth. I mean, imagine if Apple didn't have to exploit cobalt workers in the Congo to be able to provide this precious mineral for their smartphones. What if they actually paid the true cost of things? What would that look like? So here's the shift we need to make right now. Stop asking, what does it cost? Start asking, what is it worth? You spend $6 on a coffee at Starbucks. 15 minutes later, it's gone. You don't complain about it. But $80 for a video game that lasts 300 hours and potentially even more than that with replayability? Oh, and then, by the way, you could sell it, right? Especially if you've got a physical cart, which Mario Kart will actually be a physical cartridge. So you could resell it and almost make back maybe half your money. That's too much. Can't resell that Starbucks that you drank. So it's backwards thinking. But think back to the 1980s and 1990s. My family wasn't rich at all. Both my parents worked, and I got a few, expensive NES or Sega Genesis games at Christmas time, like maybe 2, maybe 3, if I was lucky. And then maybe another one on my birthday, but my birthday is New Year's Eve, so it's like, just a few days later. So I might have gotten another game, and this would have lasted me like the whole year. And these handful of great games, I would play them for months at a time, years at a time. A game like Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, offers 150 hours of, open world, handcrafted world exploration. I put in 300 hours. That's less than $1 per hour before you even consider the replayability. Even a short indie game that gives you 10 to 15 hours of great storytelling is still more value than most streaming services can offer in a month. I just did a whole video here talking about Half-Life. I just played it for the first time and loved it. I love the thing. And I'd never played it before. And I think I put in maybe 15, 20 hours because I 100%ed that game and I loved it. Think about that. It offers more value than most streaming services offer in a month. I can't tell you how many Netflix shows I've even watched this year because I don't think I've watched any. Mostly they're garbage. I think I might have watched 1 or 2 unsolved mysteries. That's it. But Emio, the Smiling Man, that came out on the Nintendo Switch last year, that game's story was phenomenal. It gave me about 13, 14 hours of content. And then I got it for my daughter as well. She loved it. It's not about the price tag. It's about what you get back from it. Here's the reality, though. $80 games are here to stay. And they probably won't be the ceiling either. I bet we return to the 1990s where we saw games in the 70s and 80s regularly priced. AAA games can cost upwards of $200 million to make. So studios need to recoup that investment. And guess what? If they make a crappy DEI-driven game that no one buys, guess what? That needs to be felt in the marketplace. That's how capitalism works. We should be rewarding companies that make great things, not artificially propping them up. That's what socialism does. When government picks winners and losers, when it subsidizes the corn lobby in Iowa, so we have to put crappy ethanol into our cars. That's purely because the government has chosen a winner and chosen a loser. That's socialism. But actual capitalism really allows for the cream to rise to the top and the crap to die off. And then we don't get stuck with these crappy $200 million DEI garbage games. So tariffs add to the real cost, for sure. And for once, we're actually seeing the true price of creativity, the true price of labor. But instead of panicking, maybe we should embrace it. Just an idea. Higher prices could actually mean better wages for developers, more polished games, so we don't get these crappy day one patches because they're trying to rush stuff out the door. Less reliance on microtransactions. Wouldn't that be amazing? More creative risks that they could take. And for us, the players, it means maybe paying a little bit more, but getting a whole lot more in return. I saw a studio the other day. They said that they wanted to return to the PS1 era, making shorter, more creative games with smaller teams. They would still make their bigger games, but they would have 15-person teams kind of focused on those 12 to maybe 15-hour experiences. Yes. They could be more creative. They could try new things. See, by putting out the big games that are well regarded to make a lot of money, it can float the boat for some of these smaller teams to make some great creative games. So yeah, $80 for a video game might sound like a lot, but do the math. Do the comparison. Look at what you're getting. You're not paying for a plastic disc. You're paying for hundreds of hours of challenge, story, connection, laughter, joy. And when you compare that to almost any other form of entertainment, games still offer the best value out there, pound for pound, penny for penny. We've been living in a fantasy economy for too long, where everything is cheap, disposable, undervalued. Heck, the United States of America right now, $36 trillion in debt. $36 trillion in debt. We've been printing fake money we don't have. The Fed has been artificially propping up this economy for years. Japan, my God, they've invested in U.S. treasuries. So their economy is in the crapper. And they don't have any young people in Japan anymore. They've got a massive birth gap. So you have all these old people dying off and no young people having babies. And they're in deep trouble. So it's time we start actually paying for things based on what they're really worth. And when it comes to games, $80 is still a bargain for a good game. And that's another point, by the way. Back in the 90s, in the 80s, we had fingers crossed hope that a game was good when we begged mom and dad for it, right? Now we have streamers and YouTube channels of people who, like me, might play a game early, give you some first impressions of it before you spend that money. You know, I might get a code early, so I get it a week ahead of time and I'm able to, you know, show you some footage and give you my impressions. You can say, it's not for me. You know, now there's a darn good chance you avoid games that simply aren't for you, and maybe you'll shell out $80 for a great game that has your name written all over it, and you know you're going to spend the next 6 months playing it. Anyway, those are my thoughts. My dog's barking like crazy. He's fired up about this as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments, and yeah, I really would. And thank you guys so much for subscribing. We'll see you next time.